So I have had the brand new Galaxy Z Fold 6 for about 3 days now, and in this video what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my 72-hour sort of first impression. I must say that the Z Fold 6 is, I think, going to be one of the most complicated devices for me to review that I have ever reviewed. And that's not because the device itself is that complicated. It's actually pretty straightforward. I could probably go back to my Z Fold 4 review, and a lot of the things I said in that would be very, very true of this device. That's kind of the reason it's going to be complicated, and it's kind of the reason why this first impressions video is going to be a little bit different than my normal first impressions video. And let me explain exactly what I mean by that. So I've had the OnePlus Open and the Pixel Fold in my possession for quite some time now, and I've made a lot of videos covering both of them. And I get asked all the time, Shane, what is the best foldable that I can buy directly in the United States? And I always answer the question this way. I say, what's the best foldable? Probably the OnePlus Open. What's my favorite foldable? That's probably the Pixel Fold. And I know that that confuses some people. Why would your favorite not just be the best? And let me give you sort of an analogy here. What's the best car on the market? That's really difficult to answer, but I would say the answer is probably going to be some sort of an SUV crossover type thing that you could haul stuff in, but you could fit your family in, but it's not so big that the gas mileage is bad. That would probably be the best car. What's my favorite car? Probably like a little two-door, two-seater glorified go-kart. That would probably be my favorite. That's kind of what I mean. I can recognize that the OnePlus Open is better than the Pixel Fold at a lot of things, but the Pixel Fold is still my favorite. That kind of brings me back to the Z Fold 6, because when I look at this device and I start to give you my opinions on it, they're going to be painted a certain way, and probably, unfortunately, a lot more negative than a lot of people's opinion is going to be, but that is my opinion. And that's what we're going to talk about in this first impressions video. When I do my full review, which is probably a few days away, I'm going to be much more objective in that video. I'm going to tell you much more about this phone from the perspective of, is this a good phone? Is this the best phone? Versus this video being more, is this my favorite phone? I hope that makes sense. And with that said, we can kind of dive into it. Let's start off by saying some positive things about the Z Fold 6. The build quality is really, really superb, okay? This thing feels great in your hand. I think that it looks quite good. I think that their styling is really nice and sleek. It's minimal, and I like it a lot. I like the way that the edges feel. It's not a glossy, shiny, sort of slippery side, which is really, really good. It has gotten very thin. It has gotten very light, the very same weight, if I'm not mistaken, as the OnePlus Open. Much, much lighter than the Pixel Fold. The camera bump does not stick out too far. The fingerprint scanner is fast and accurate. I find that the volume buttons are relatively easy to reach. Like, just from a physical build perspective, it is a very, very well-made device. I touched on this a little bit already in another video, but even the hinge feels really good, guys. It's nice and smooth. It's not nearly as hard to open as it used to be, which I think is a great step in the right direction, but it is nice and smooth. No real complaints there. They've definitely reduced the appearance of the crease a little bit. Still not in the OnePlus Open range, but it's definitely better. It's not as deep as it was before, which is going to make things a lot easier. Why do I have an extra screen here? It's going to make things a lot easier, a lot better when you are using the S Pen and drawing across that little canal there in the middle of the screen. I like the boxier appearance. I like the fact that your bezels on the inside have gotten very, very small. These are all really good things, but I got to start talking about something that isn't as good, and that's going to be the cover display. Is it better than it's ever been for these Samsung Z Fold line devices? Absolutely. This is a step in the right direction, but I must tell you, it is still too narrow for me. If I had only ever used Z Fold devices, I had never dipped my toe in the water with the Pixel Fold, with the OnePlus Open, this device would feel fantastic. But unfortunately for Samsung, I have used those other devices. And when you slide the OnePlus Open in there, it is such a dramatic improvement for me that it is not even funny. And this is one of these things that I find is really difficult to capture on screen with a camera. We would see this device next to the OnePlus Open, and I myself made a video saying, hey, that actually doesn't look like it's too far off. This might be better than I was thinking. But let me just tell you, I've had them both in hand. I've used them both extensively now. It is not as good as the OnePlus Open. It's still just too narrow. Is it something that I could absolutely adjust to? I could get used to? I could forget about? 100% it is. But why would I when I can just use a different phone that doesn't have this issue? And again, like I've said a million times, you may not see an issue here. You may prefer the skinnier screen, but that's kind of the point I was making. This is my first impressions. This is how I feel about this phone. And you can kind of see this a bit just looking at the keyboard. This thing is just not as comfortable to type on. If you're using your two fingers, your two thumb typing, it's just too cramped. You can, one finger swipe, and you can actually argue it's really quite comfortable to do that. But sometimes I want to type like that, and guys, it's just still too narrow for me. When a device like this exists, and it's cheaper, and I already have it for one thing, but yes, it's significantly cheaper, and you have this better cover display, at least better for me, speaking subjectively, again, remember that. It's really difficult for me to not look at this device and think, why am I using this? When I open them both up and I have the inner screens, the same thing kind of starts to happen to me. This is good, right? No problem. This is good, and it is an improvement. But when this exists and it's cheaper and I already have it, I again start to ask myself, why am I using this one when I could just use this one? Now, while we're talking about these screens, I do want to make something very, very clear. And I'm going to talk about this in another video. Maybe I've already posted that video. I'm not exactly sure how this is all going to time out. The screens on the Z Fold 6, I believe to be better than the screens in the OnePlus Open. They are brighter. I know that this is supposed to be the brighter screen, the OnePlus Open. It just isn't. When you put them side by side, outside in direct sunlight, the Z Fold 6 is the brighter set of displays. So it's not all bad, right? But again, all I'm saying is these displays are very good, but the fact that they are sticking with this skinny, tall form factor is just holding things back. Not enough has changed about this device. This device was once revolutionary, and now through 6 iterations, and you would say, what, 4 of which, maybe 5 of which, have seen almost no changes, it has begun to become kind of a boring device, and they have allowed these other OEMs to step in and create devices that do the things that we have been begging for them to do, and that's a problem, guys. That's sort of the overall story for the Z Fold 6. It is rock solid. They have polished this gemstone until it is the shiniest version of itself that it could possibly be. But at a certain point, you have to start changing things. You have to start adapting and going the direction that people would have you go. You have to start upgrading the camera hardware. You have to start changing that aspect ratio that people have complained about from the very beginning. It is an objectively great phone, but it is a subjectively boring phone for me now. Let me put it another way. There's nothing wrong with the Z Fold 6. I am a huge Tennessee Titans fan, and if you don't know about football, it's not really going to matter a whole lot. I'm going to use an analogy here to explain it. For a long time, it seemed like every single year, the Titans were going to have 9 wins and 7 losses, and maybe they were just barely going to make the playoffs, or maybe they were going to barely miss the playoffs. They were fine, though, right? They were a decent team. They were even potentially a good team, but they refused to do the things, to make the big moves to become a great team. Every year, 9-7, 9-7. Hey, we're winning. We're winning more than we're losing. Isn't that good enough? Eventually, if you want to win the Super Bowl, you have to take some swings. You have to take some risks. You have to go for it. The Z Fold 6 is a 9-7 team. They've won more than they've lost, but they're just not taking enough risks. They're not being aggressive enough for me to say this is a 14-win team. This is a team that's going to contend for a Super Bowl. Hopefully that makes sense. Some of the only really new stuff on this device are the AI features. And if I'm being totally honest with you, the AI features for me run the gamut from Cool, nifty, entertaining, but stuff I'm probably going to forget about or use very sparsely within the next week or two, all the way to I don't care, I'm never going to use this. There's not a single AI feature on this phone that I'm like, this totally changes the way that I use this device, and I can't use another device because I can't go without this feature. It's just kind of novel stuff tacked on. The camera performance is good, no problems with it, but you can find better even on a foldable device, in particular with regard to zoom and things like that. The battery life is good, but you can find other phones that are right there with it that might also offer something crazy like 67-watt charging, whereas this thing is still charging pretty slow for modern times. Google's guilty of this as well. And this is kind of like my whole feeling on this phone. There's nothing radically wrong with it, but there's nothing radically exciting about it either. You know, it's really just so strange to me to have a folding phone that when I look at it, this is the feeling I have. And I know a lot of people will say, yes, but the Samsung software experience, that's where it separates itself. But I really don't think that's true anymore. There's not a whole lot this thing can do that the OnePlus Open can't do for significantly cheaper. And honestly, in some ways, it might do it better. So we have YouTube open on both of these and we want to multitask. Great. Well, we can drag an app off of the taskbar. That's the same. We have an app drawer there. That's the same. Recent apps over here. That's the same. On the Z Fold, you can do a 2-finger swipe in any direction like this. There we go. And you're going to get a second app. You have your app drawer. So let's just grab the Play Store just to kind of keep things simple. That'll open up in split screen. Great. On the OnePlus Open, you can do a 2-finger swipe down and you just get your home screen, which I actually prefer. You can then click on that second app and it's going to open that up just exactly like that. You can click in the middle and you can swap sides. You can save it as a pair. You can go to a top-bottom split. It's basically the same experience, except over here with OnePlus, you can grab an app and you can expand it, making YouTube full screen. You can jump back and forth between these different applications. You can do a 4-finger pinch and have them both visible on the screen at the same time. Let's go ahead and shrink this app, and I'll show you what a third app looks like between the two. We'll drag in Wise over here, and that's basically how that works. They're all three on screen at the same time. If I go and I grab Wise over here and drag it on, what's going to happen is it's going to pop up next to it. Now, this is definitely a difference. You may hate this, you may like this. I honestly can't decide which way I feel about it because it's cool to have everything on the screen at once, but these are so tiny, they may as well, they're kind of useless if I'm being honest. And of course, you can do this and now they're all on the screen at the same time. And then of course, you can also come over here and you can expand this. And now you have a full screen app and you can quickly jump to these two split screen apps. Like what I'm getting at here, guys, is that it's not like Samsung has this, insane lead when it comes to software. People act like Samsung software is just the end-all be-all, and it's very good. Even if I say it's better than what OnePlus has, which in terms of polish and things like that, it may very well be. The reality is the gap is just not that significant. Again, I think it's a great phone. I know it doesn't sound like I feel that way, but I do. If you buy this thing and you use it every day, you're probably going to love it. You're probably not going to have a single thing where you're going to go, wow, I can't believe this aspect is this bad. Everything is going to be pretty good for you. It's a really rock solid phone. The foundation is stable and a beautiful home has been built on top of it. But it's also a phone that if I go to my 3 recent foldables, my Pixel Fold, my OnePlus Open, and the Z Fold 6, it will be the last one that I pick up. So guys, I know that this is a weirdly, uncharacteristically negative video for me, and I'm trying really hard to balance that out through the course of this video. I want to remind you that my full review, I'm going to be much more objective. I'm going to try to pull my own feelings out of it as much as I can and simply evaluate the phone for what it is, almost in a vacuum. Not quite in a vacuum, but you know what I mean, hopefully. This is just kind of how I feel after using the phone for a few days. It's just some stuff that I feel like I just needed to communicate, needed to say. I'm sure some of you are going to get it. Some of you are going to agree with me. Some of you are going to be very irritated with me and perhaps upset with me in the comments down below. And it is what it is. All I can do is say, it's not a bad phone. This is just how I feel about it at this current moment. So guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.